Hey everybody, it's Libby again with Fearlessness, and I have a very special guest and very good friend, Jhon LeBaron. Why don't you introduce yourself, Jhon, to our audience, and then we can get started.
Hey guys, thank you for having me, Libby. As Libby said, my name is Jhon LeBaron. I am a husband, father of six, and entrepreneur, and I am really
Right,
glad
he
to be
said
here.
six.
Yes, six kids. Love it.
Crazy. So tell us about you. Like, what do you do? What I know what you did, but how'd you get started? It's a great backstory, and then we're gonna jump into some good questions.
Yeah, how did I get started in business? I took the company over from my mom back in 2017. And she was at about six figures of income, and now we have taken it to a multiple seven figures of income. My company really runs itself. I think I maybe work like 30 minutes to an hour a week in my business. And so it's like a self-running company, which is the dream that everybody wants, you know?
Yeah. And so if you're only working like 30 minutes to an hour a week,
Yep, a week.
what are you doing with the rest of your time?
What do I do in my free time? That's what you asked, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's 24 hours in a day. So if you're only working like an hour a week,
What do I do in
you
my
still
free
have
time?
you have a lot of free time.
I do. So I have a couple other companies as well that I manage. We have our supplement company. I help my wife with her business as well. So she
Was
hasn't
she
launched
still
that
doing the
like,
artisan?
no, that was just to really help her sister out. We're an entrepreneur family. She's trying to help her sister get put on her feet and build her own income. But my wife has been really passionate about the toxins that are in our home and the supply, everything we use. So she is really focused on building a business with that right now. So she hasn't officially launched yet to public. So I'm like trying to not say too much about it for her. But it's been really good helping her just get that up and get her branding on point and the whole thing with that. And then having six kids, we also homeschool. So we're a really big entrepreneur family. And my goal is to teach my kids about entrepreneurship. So my two oldest daughters are in the process of actually starting their own business, and that is going to be in the dog sphere. They love dogs. We have two schnauzers, and I'm like not pushing them to it. I'm letting them just kind of take the steps and just run with it and learn. So I've been really busy coaching and guiding and helping them with that as well. What else do I do? We are in the
So you're
process
still
of
doing a
building.
lot of work.
Yes, I am. Yes. But in other aspects that I love.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. You had said something about your wife is really passionate about toxins. And it's funny because that's mine and Chris's kind of new passion is toxins, but toxins in food.
Yes.
So we're very, very big on the toxins in food and the natural toxins in food. So I'm not going to say any more. If you're listening, you just have to Google toxins in food and you'll be frightened after you're done.
Oh, you will. My wife's really big on that too. It's actually like blows my mind the amount of junk that's out there that people think is healthy.
Yeah. Yeah,
I won't do too
absolutely.
much, like you said.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you wouldn't even think this, but even vegetables have toxins in them.
Yep. I know.
So
It's crazy.
it's crazy. It's crazy. But, anyways, so, you were working like you took the business over from your mom. By the way, his mom is amazing. So, I mean, it's no surprise that, Jhon would be just as amazing as his mom. And,
Thank you.
and, we met because we have a similar business, right? We have a cleaning company. That's how we met. We're in the same group. And I think we probably did it close to the same time. We both decided to take our cleaning companies like fully remote.
We did. Yep, right around the same time frame. I don't know if you want me to share how I got into remote at all or
Sure.
okay. Yeah, totally. I'd been wanting to take my company remote for a while, but I was a little scared to do it because I didn't really know it. And we had some crazy turnover in our office. I lost pretty much my entire admin team. Mind you, this is when we have about 30 cleaning technicians. I lost everybody that manages my company. And I remember I hired somebody, spent a whole week training them. They went to lunch on Friday and just never came back. And that was the straw that like broke the camel's back. I was done. I was like, we're just going to go fully remote. And we did. We jumped in, hired my first one. I had no idea what I was doing. And obviously got better with the second and the third. And now we have 7 people who help run our team. They're all fully remote. And I absolutely love the team that I have. Looking back, losing my admin team was actually the biggest blessing that's ever happened to my business because I felt like it pushed me to where I actually wanted to go. So,
I love that. And you had said the whole she went to lunch on Friday, never came back. It's funny. We had somebody do that to us almost. We were onboarding somebody and they hadn't quite started yet. We asked them to send a picture of themselves to us so we could make their name badge and like put it on their like icon of the like their login. And they sent a picture and we looked at it and we were like, that's not the same person that we interviewed. And that had never happened to us. And we're like, well, my assistant, she's like, what do I do? Because it was her. She said, Libby, this is not the same person we interviewed. I didn't see the picture. And I was like, I don't know, ask her. Like, call her up and like, let's get on a Zoom with her. Give her a phone call before she actually starts. Like, let's ask her. And dude, Marilyn got on a Slack huddle with the person and started talking. And when Marilyn asked her the question, she like dropped off Slack and logged off of everything.
oh gosh,
I'm
ghosted
like,
you.
how did this person not know that we were not going to tell that? I don't know if she thought we were like some giant company and like the HR department's different than the people that she was going to actually work with or for. I have no idea. It was just hilarious that like, it's as bad as going to lunch on Friday and they didn't come back.
That's after I'd spent like a whole week. I was there all day training her. And then she's like, all right, I'm going to go to lunch. I'll see you in like 30. And then 30 minutes comes by and she's not back. And then 45 minutes. And like an hour later, she texts us and she's like, yeah, this is just not going to work out. I was
Yeah,
like, it
that's
was going so
crazy.
well. What happened? But like I said, it was such a blessing because it really did force me to go remote. And now I'll never go back. So,
You know, I learned, and it was weird because when I built Woot Recruits, we're fully remote. We don't own anything. Like there's no building, there's no rent. I had a coach and he's like, where are your, because he come from software, but he was older software like Microsoft where they have a building. And he's like, you have no line items for things like cell phone expenses or phones or rent. And I'm like, well, we don't have any of those things. And if we have a phone, it's built into the software. And I'm like, we don't have that. And meanwhile, Organize It, the cleaning company was over here, and I had this big office, and it was fancy, and it was pretty, and I had all my culture stuff on the walls, and like, and it was so interesting because it didn't matter. Believe it or not, the remote company, Organize It, had better culture because it took more effort in having better communication. And so when you learn to communicate, I found like when you learn to communicate at the level that you need to communicate to run a remote person, it just like there's this transparency and this simpatico and everybody's understands and they're in line and they know the mission and what we're trying to do versus even with an office, the culture wasn't as strong and organized as it was in Woot Recruit. And then I decided to take Woot Recruit totally remote. When did I do that? I did it total remote almost a year and a half ago.
around the same time I started doing mine. So,
Yeah, and it's been great. Like we're no longer limited by local talent pools. We can recruit and source people from anywhere in the United States or world, nearshore, offshore, locally, not locally. But I think also like it gives, I don't know, there's a lot of interesting like aspects. It gives me the freedom. Like I don't feel bad not going to the office because the office is Slack and
yep.
the office is Google Chat. We have two offices and I don't feel bad on that part. But then also your overhead isn't as high. So it allows you to probably it allows us to pay better
We can offer
instead of
better
thinking
incentives.
better incentives, better benefits. Because people are like, oh, you're just hiring remote because you're hiring a $5 person from the Philippines. I'm like, I ain't got one of those people that work for me.
They don't work out.
They don't work out.
They really don't. When I
No,
see people struggling with remote workers, my first question is, how much are you paying them? Because if you're going for, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but if you're going for like the bottom tier of like $5 an hour as a person, that's going to reflect in the quality of work that you're getting from them. So,
well, also in their experience and the
yes,
level of talent that you need.
100%.
So, like, I could pay like a good living wage anywhere. What does it matter, like, where they are? So, I didn't go remote to save money. I went remote for the flexibility and freedom for everyone because even my office staff wanted to go remote. I'm like,
Yeah.
we even consider our cleaning technicians remote now.
Yep. They don't work in the office, they work remotely.
They work from home because they leave from their home.
Yep. Yeah, we did the same. We didn't go to save money. I did it because of the talent pool. I feel like it opens you up to candidates that you otherwise wouldn't have available for you. And now it's like I can hire anybody from anywhere that meets what I'm looking for. And then we're really big on family in our business. And what I love about remote is that a lot of my team members have kids. They actually joked what was in the water at our office because four of my office staff members were pregnant at once. So I'm like, it's not the water,
Yeah.
guys. You're all remote unless you guys are shipping each other water, but it's not the water. So we're really big on family. And I love that because I feel like my team gets the best of both worlds. They do a really good job. They're hitting their numbers, and that's what really counts. So,
Yeah, I mean, we're the same. Not very many people in our company have kids that are in the office, but one of my biggest pet peeves with remote is like if we're in a meeting, my team used to get so embarrassed if there was like a noise in the background or like the dog barked or the kid made a sound. I'm like, I don't care. Like, don't worry about it. Cause they were just like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't care. Have you seen my crazy house?
have you seen mine?
Like, I don't care. That's fine. That's one of the things of, working from home. There are, as long as you're doing your job and you're hitting your numbers, like you said, I don't care if there's somebody asking you a question or a dog barking in the background during the meeting. Like, those things don't bother me. And I hate that they were so like scared or ashamed in that moment. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired.
Yeah, I
It's
had a
crazy.
situation like that with one of my salespeople. Her baby actually woke up early during a nap while she was on the phone, and she was freaking out, like, what do I do? But it ended up being that customer booked with us because they saw our values, which is family. They were like, how amazing is that you work with a company that allows you to be at home with your kids? Like, we want to sign up with that company. And so she booked them. Now, I'm
Love
not
that.
saying I want that to be the standard. Like, no, that
No.
can't, but exceptions happen every now and then.
Yeah. I was going to say, what was your biggest learning lesson going remote?
What was my biggest learning lesson going remote? That
Like,
would have to be having the structure and the training and the processes all set up. Our first person, we got lucky because um, she had experience working remotely before. So I just kicked her out of the nest and she flew. I had nothing set up. I had no training, nothing for her. And then I was like, you know what? We're going to hire a second person. I think we need to have some training stuff going for this. So we really started just building up our training. And by the third person, it was even better. And I got it so specific. Like I had a whole email template that I would send them like, hey, this is your login for this. I need you to reply to this and let me know you got it. Check in with this person. Like it gave them very specific instructions of what to do. And I think with remote work, you kind of have to have that. You have to be very detailed as far as what you want done, but then trust your team that they're going to do what they need to do.
yeah. It's crazy because I hear so many people that they're like, oh, remotes, it's horrible. I don't like it. Everybody, like, I don't have success. And I always say that, like, it requires a level of communication and organization that most business owners don't have yet.
100%. 100%.
Because it's easy to like hire someone in the office and look over their shoulder and kind of tell them what to do every 5 seconds. And that means when we're small, we don't have those processes nailed down yet, and we don't even know what we're doing. But so many people want to go remote that to save money, right? Or for flexibility, maybe to save money because they don't want the office. What would be like a great tip that you would tell them how to get started? So many people ask me like, how do you get started? Where'd you find your first one? And like, what should be the first step I should do to get started if I want to go remote?
For me, it was pick the most challenging position that you want to take remote, which was scheduling for me. I do not like scheduling. So I knew I was going to hire that out. And then I feel like you really have to have your processes in place of what you're going to do. I mean, it could be a Google sheet and write down everything that they need to learn in that Google sheet with links to the videos or whatnot. But I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing is a mindset shift of getting over the fear of going remote. I was so afraid that we were going to lose our culture, that customers were going to be angry, that my technicians weren't going to be happy. No, none of that happened. So I
No.
feel like everybody is happier because of it.
Yeah. And so I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. I'm going to be like, well, I can't hire a scheduler that's remote because they don't live here. How will they know my service area?
I've heard that before too. My comeback to that is you just have to give them a map and let them know where you service and what areas you don't service. And a lot of softwares will let you put that in there of like, hey, we don't service this area or we do. And set parameters up like we do. Like they can't cross, I mean, they can go from one town to the next, but they cannot skip a town to go to another town. Like it has to be touching the towns too. And so
Yeah.
I feel like just with time, they'll get better and better at it too. They'll start to learn the area.
Yeah. I like that. The only reason I said this because I've heard it 100 times about like, oh, I couldn't do that. They won't know the area. I think for me, one of the biggest things I've seen that was like the fear of remote is people have a lot of trust issues. It's that whole trust. Do I know that they're just working for me? Do I know that they're doing their job? No, you don't.
You
But you
don't
do
know.
know if they're getting to the end result. Like if you've cleared what is the end result? What does their numbers look like? then you know if they are doing their job. But there is no way, because so many people ask, do you know of a screen recording device or something that can monitor their computer? I'm like, I'm not watching those recordings or that crap. Like, I am not a micromanager, and neither are you. You're not going to reference it either. It's going to give you a false sense of hope, this false sense of, versus like, if you could communicate great and you had the job description and the role and everything they needed to get to, people aren't like inherently bad people.
They're not. They're inherently good. And I think for me, how you combat that is you just have to know the numbers and what the end result is, like you said. Hey, if your goal is to sell this much per month or per week and you're hitting that, we're fine. If you're not hitting that, there's a reason and we're going to talk about it and we're going to figure out what that reason is. And I think another key that's super important to going remote is giving each person a KPI, like a number that they need to track and a goal that they need to be hitting. And if they're hitting that, cool. I don't need to like sit there and be micromanaging everything that you're doing.
Yeah. And so we love remote, and it's been absolutely amazing. I want to switch over to from remote and to some of your other companies. I know you have the supplement company. Is that ran remote as well, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we actually just took that remote a couple months ago. Again, we had visions of this gorgeous big office we were going to get and just the culture. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So yeah, that's actually a remote office now too. And it is self-running. We use a lot of technology in that company, and we actually partnered with somebody else. Like before, we were fulfilling the orders ourselves. We had a staff member that was fulfilling the orders. We took the whole thing remote, and now we partner with like a third-party fulfillment service that fulfills our orders for us, and it's really hands-off. We are
That's
embracing
great.
the remote thing.
Yeah, you are. And I think like we could nail this down a little bit more for anyone who's thinking about it or struggling with it. And I know that like in my days, you see the way someone's running their business and you think, "Oh, that's how I should do it. That's the way it's supposed to be." And we all envision like the beautiful sign on the front of the building with our logo on it, and like conference rooms, and like I want plants in my office, and I want the name on my parking spot. I don't know if you know that deep. But
I did. I went that deep.
so, I don't know if we're like, and I think, at least for me, because when I got rid of the organized office, I had spent money to have like this wall of values. It was like this whole wall of like these like motivational words. It was beautiful. And I had new furniture and I had all this stuff. And then I looked at Chris, and I'd only had it like done for probably like 4 or 5 months. We'd had the office for a while. We'd moved because of Hurricane Ian to a different office, and then I finally fixed it up. And I looked at Chris and I said, I want to get rid of the office. I kept telling him, I want to get rid of the office. He's like, do it. I said, but I just fixed it and did all this stuff to it. And, but in reality, and then I was scared that the cleaners were going to get upset. Right. So I was like, oh my God, we're going to lose our culture. So I did a survey and I asked all the cleaners, and they didn't care. They did not care at all. They're like, we don't care. We only come like once every 2 weeks.
Yep.
And so it was funny because what I ended up realizing why it took me so long to get rid of it was 100% ego.
Oh, 100%. I wanted
It
to
was
have a
ego.
gorgeous office to show off to people and look at me. And I realized that that didn't fit the lifestyle I actually wanted. I want to be able to travel freely with my family and have time with them. And I feel like an office was kind of holding me back. And I don't necessarily think remote work is for everybody. I think you have to look
No.
at what your goal is and what your end game is. And if you value going into the office and you value having a team that you see every day and interact with, then remote's probably not going to work for you. But for me, I knew that I wanted to have a team that really runs itself, a company that's growing, and me not having to be there on a daily basis, and remote just fit that bill.
Yeah. I love that. For me, it was ego. I finally had to like face it. And I looked at Chris and I said, it's 100% my problem. It's nobody else's problem. I got to get over it.
What do
I'm
you feel
still
like
the
you did
same
to get
business
over that?
owner. Yeah. I'm like, I'm still the same business owner. It's still the same business. It's still successful. My office was defining me, but it didn't fit my lifestyle. That's why I felt like this friction. It didn't fit my lifestyle. I like to travel. We homeschool our daughter too. We're never home. So yeah, for me, it was so much of an ego trip. And then I finally just, was real with myself and had that difficult conversation. But if anything, it's helped our culture for us because we communicate at a higher level now. And, we're doing things more in front of the technicians because they've always been kind of remote because they leave from their house. But the office was in the office, right? So they saw each other and they talked to each other. But now that we're remote, like the office staff is remote, they're actually more involved with the technicians because we took the office to a virtual office, which everyone can be in the virtual office.
Yeah, we did the same
Um,
thing. I have exactly the same thing. So I feel like my technicians are supported more now than they were before.
yeah, and more supported, more involved with like what's going on, whether they want to look at it or read it or not. But, we share a lot more in there. But I love that. So let's talk about your kids.
Yeah, totally.
6 kids. So, Jhon, how many kids have you had since I met you? 3, I think.
Probably. When did we meet? It's been a while.
It's been a while. And so I love that you're homeschooling and travel. I would say, as far as like teaching the entrepreneurs and like journey and your kids, what are some of for you, the big ahas or takeaways that, you want to make sure that you pass down to your kids?
The biggest one is just the freedom to control your own destiny with entrepreneurship. I feel like you have the freedom to create whatever it is that you want to create. And not that we don't need employees, because I do think some
Yeah.
people love being an employee. We need those. If everybody's an entrepreneur, it wouldn't work. But for the ones that want to be an entrepreneur, I feel like I want my kids to know that they really can build and do and have whatever it is that they set their mind to. And entrepreneurship is like the vehicle towards them.
Yeah.
I bring my kids with me to work quite often, let them tag along. How they can be bored here watching me get back to emails and doing calls. And my son actually wanted to come today for my first podcast. He's like, please, can I go with you? I'll be really, really
Is this your
quiet.
first podcast?
This is, we did the one with Ricky, but yeah, technically my
Yeah.
first. Technically
Oh,
my
I didn't know
first.
I was your first. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so
So,
honored.
so he wanted to come with, and I was like, no, buddy, not today. I love you, but we need absolute quiet for this one today so we can focus. So, but I
So,
think go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, how do you manage the kids while you're homeschooling and working from home?
A great question. How do I manage the kids while we're homeschooling and working from home? We do homeschooling a little bit different than a lot of people do it. We do it where it's student led. So I let my kids focus on the topics that they're intrigued in, that they really value and love, because I feel like if someone's going to force you to learn something, you don't want to learn it as much as learning about what you absolutely love. So that's really big for us. And then two, my kids just know, hey, dad's working right now. We can't interrupt him until they let me kind of do my work. But I'm actually I call it my studio. It's like my podcast studio. It used to be my little admin office for my supplement company, which went remote and we no longer needed it. So I converted it to my studio. So if I need extra quiet, I can just come work here.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, for us, it was a little bit of a challenge to get Yaya to not like come into the camera. You used to be able to see her head creep up from the bottom and she would come back down and she'd be behind me or like, because she loves to be on camera. Like she loves to be on camera. And so so she's a little bit older now than when I first started, like a year and a half, 2 years ago. But now she understands. So now the way she helps us or gets involved when we're like doing Zoom meetings or even in a podcast or a coaching session, she'll bring me she'll serve me she'll bring me like a cup of water and mom, here, I got you a snack, because she
Love
knows that she
that.
can't talk. So,
I love
and
that.
she'll be super quiet, but it's her way of like being involved and helping. It's funny.
Yeah, I was
And she
coming
only goes
to
to school 3 days a week. Not go to school. We call it go to school.
homeschool 3 days a
She
week.
only does school 3 days a week.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
And
daughter was the same
then,
way. She knew I was coming, so she sent me with a protein shake. I'm like, thank you.
yes. So that's how Yaya helps us out. And she only does school 3 days a week. And then the other 2 days, like Monday, she doesn't just go Wednesday and Friday. She tags along with Chris on Wednesday and she tags along with me on Friday. Like no matter what I'm doing, she's coming. Like the other day, we went to the attorney's office and I'm like, we're going to see the attorney.
I
So
think that's key though, because that's how they learn real practical, real life skills, like by watching what you're doing. So I used to have the mindset of like, oh, if I bring them to the office, we're going to have to entertain them and it's going to be really hard. And then I switched that and I was like, no, they can come and sit there and be bored and watch me and learn and ask questions if they want to. I think that's setting them up for a better future than if they didn't have that. So I love that you guys do that.
yeah, that's awesome. I love like the mindset shift. I was the same way. I thought that we'd have to entertain Yaya for the longest time when she was small. And then finally I was like, she can entertain herself. Like she can just sit there and be miserable. So, before we start to wrap up, besides, the company, the cleaning company, and the supplement company. And I know your kids are working on a few things, which I love. Do you have any other things in the works that you're working on?
Yes, I am working on some top secret stuff. I'm not ready to reveal yet.
Okay, top secret stuff that you're not
Top
ready to
secret
reveal yet.
stuff. I'm working on a podcast for myself too.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we just got we got in a network. So we're super excited. So we are in the Work Defined network. So we're an endorsed podcast by Work Defined. We have not actually said it publicly yet, but we've signed the contract and the deal, and it's been a learning adventure. And for everyone out there who wants to do a podcast, here's how not to do it. Is to think it is a sales call. I was on a podcast the other day, and all they were trying to do is tee me up to sell me something. Like, that's it. And the same thing, I have a podcast tomorrow, and I have a feeling that they're just going to tee me up to try to sell me something. And a podcast is literally about your conversation, your personality, like who you are, and giving out, like freely talking and expressing and sharing your journey and other people's and your friends. Like, that's why everyone that's on my podcast, I know personally so far. Hopefully I don't run out of friends to bring on here. But by doing that, like, we haven't had ours. We've only had ours a year. And, we got invited into the Work Defined network, and super exciting for us. And I will say, here's my thought on that. It's not, doesn't really necessarily have to do with like how many downloads you have and how many subscribers. I mean, that has a little bit to do with it, but they looked at the quality of our content because we were a newer podcast, and they decided to go ahead and bring us on, even though we didn't have like these astronomical numbers. And they decided to bring us on because we weren't selling, like we weren't being kind of that teeing people up to just, do a fake demo with them. So anyone out there who wants to start a podcast, I was just watching one yesterday of a guy who started it when he's 53 years old and already has 8 million followers. And he started it 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh,
I'm
amazing.
Like, why can't I do that? I'm like,
you can. It'll happen.
I know, I can. It's
My
going to
goal with
happen.
the podcast is really not to, and I guess I'm announcing it now. So yay, I'm doing a podcast.
Well, so to give you some, before you say this, these are recorded, so it'll drop in a few weeks. So you have a few weeks.
Okay, perfect. As you know, like I've said before, my goal was to always work with dads on building a business, right? And I just didn't know how that was going to look. I was like, okay, I'm going to teach a program, but that just didn't feel right with me. I was like, what am I going to do? I wanted to do coaching and be a coach in CBF. That just didn't work. And I was like, what is it? And then, I don't know, it clicked, a podcast. I was like, oh my gosh, I can sit down with people and talk to them and ask questions and really help them build a business that runs without them. Is kind of what my podcast was going to be about. So it's going to be all about remote work and literally building a business that runs without you.
Love that. And I think podcasting it's very popular, super popular, kind of fizzled out. It's popular again. But I think I love that. I was going to ask you what it was about. And I knew that you had wanted to do something with dads. And so I didn't say anything. Thought came to my mind.
I knew that's what you were asking when you said it.
And one of the best things that me and Chris did is we do Saturday morning dates live, like on Facebook. And we're just sitting there talking, answering people's questions, drinking coffee. It's very like loosey-goosey. I dropped the F-bomb a few times. I've gotten warnings from Facebook to stop cussing. And what we've found is like we have built like major following, and we didn't even realize it. And it's not even we're going to take it to a podcast. We're going to take all the recordings and upload them to create our own podcast, because we go live every Saturday morning on social media. And Chris is like, I want to take those recordings and just make them an audio podcast. But we didn't even realize like what we were doing until we went to an event, and like literally everyone that we saw was like, oh my God, I listened to your podcast, like, or to your Saturday morning dates. They're like, oh my God, I wake up to you every Saturday morning. Like, oh, your health journey inspired me. Like, I'm walking every day now. Like, I'm doing dates with my husband now. And you're just like, Chris was blown away. But like, he's like, oh my gosh, I have that much reach and influence just by sharing my story. Like, not selling, just sharing how we did it or what we're doing. And so I do love the podcast, like framework, like the platform, because I think it's so giving if you do it right.
100%. And that's what I want to do. My goal is to really help families have more time together. And through the podcast, they can learn different, things to implement or different ways of going about doing things and have fun and connect with people and share. And this was my first official one, I was a little nervous, not going to lie. Not because I've talked to you a million times, but
you know
how
me.
it is. I know. I'm like, you know how it is when you're on camera and you expect it to go a certain way. And so,
Okay, so what's the name? Do you have a name yet? When's it launching? Do you have any of that written down?
um, yeah, I do actually. So it's Founders Freedom Formula. And it is a
Catchy.
podcast about building a business that thrives without you.
Founders Freedom Formula. All F's. Founders
Yes, all
Freedom.
F.
Okay. I was gonna say you could call it like the, I don't know,
Three
FFFF.
F method is what it's going to be.
Yeah. That's awesome. Are you focusing on men?
Nope. I actually have it on my list to ask you to be on my podcast when it's launched.
So it's funny because when I first started this one, I was gonna focus just on women.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, but so many of my friends are men. And then, I have a lot of men that reach out to me for help, like with their marriage or advice on marriage, like relationship or even business or help with like organizing their business because, we know maybe that's not some of their strong suits. And I'm like, no, but then I feel like I'd be excluding them if I specifically made it about women.
That's kind of the same feeling I had. So, which is why I'm going to include both. To me, I really want to find people who are just killing it in business and living the life that I know is possible for so many other people, and using the podcast as a tool to inspire them, not sell anything. I don't want to sell nothing with it. It's just more of like, hey, this is possible if you work towards it.
Yeah. So are parents going to be a focus because of homeschool or just business in general?
I feel like for me, it's people who have kids for sure. So parents, that way they can learn to spend more time with their kids, but
Hmm.
it's not going to be limited to just that. But that is the
Okay.
focus.
I
Building a
don't
business. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't know. We used to have a topic for this podcast, but it's gone in every which way direction.
No, it's funny. Yeah, no, I think that'll happen with mine too. Is I know what my focus is. I want to help them build a business that thrives so they can have time with their family, but I'm sure it's going to go different ways.
Yeah, because I think it's just for mine, it's like entrepreneur, it's fearlessness. It's like it's that fearless that you like find in yourself, fearlessness that you find in yourself to get over the struggles, the issues, the hard times, the failures. We didn't talk about your failures very much.
We didn't.
And that's where you create that fearlessness that gets you through the next hard thing.
Oh, 100%. One of my failures, like I said, was when I lost my entire team. That got
We
me
did talk about that.
to where I am. That was so important. I
Yeah.
chose Founders Freedom Formula because we are founders of businesses, and there's a freedom formula out there that helps you build a business that runs without you.
We are. Love it. All right. So we will make sure to put all of John's information and maybe his podcast information in our show notes if it's ready by then. Like I said, John, these are recorded and they drop a few weeks behind. But we'll make sure to put your social media handles and any information so that you can reach out to John if you're interested in connecting. And John, I want to thank you for letting me be your first podcast
Yes. Thank you
host.
so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And I
You're
will
welcome.
look forward to seeing you next week.
Yes, we'll see each other next week.
Yeah, we
Awesome,
will.
guys. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you love this episode, make sure you share it with any of your other entrepreneur friends that may be struggling, or maybe you need to find that fearlessness inside of you. This is a great podcast to follow and to make sure to share. Again, if anyone out there may be struggling when it comes to entrepreneurism, business, employees, or just getting over your own ego like me, and make sure to stay tuned for our next episode.